All right, welcome, welcome, welcome to another W Series Presents Countdown to Lights Out. Not Countdown to Green. I did the title, but it doesn't matter. It will be fixed for when I post this onto YouTube. Evening time for here, but will be just in time for race, sort of. As soon as this is over, I'm going to try and get this uploaded as fast as possible so that people don't have to. But they can listen to it whenever and right before the start of the race. Don't you worry, though. Saturday, there's a chance I will be back live. And Saturday, there's a big chance that I will make sure to have that posted right after the race. And it's going to be something special for this either way. Once again, welcome back, like I said, to another W Series Breakdown presents Countdown to Lights Out. So big day today as we'll practice for the start of the race weekend and qualifying for the start of the race weekend for the W Series. Unto no shock, a good running from W Series defending champion and defending race winner of, last races is what I'm saying. Jamie Chadwick. But not by much is what I want to get out there. It's not by much. It's a very close battle. I think a lot of these cars will be close together. And again, there's still chance of rain. There still will most likely be rain during the race, especially early on in the morning when they have their race. The race will be starting my local time around 7:20 a.m. So you take that into consideration. They're about 5 to 6 hours ahead. So you put it into their time zone. There's a bigger chance that they get the rain than anybody else does. So it was interesting to listen to what the top three had to say for qualifying, but we'll get into that later. We'll talk about qualifying after we talk about practice and what these drivers had to face at the start of free practice to be exact, because it was not the driest of track, and a lot of these drivers who did end up going out tried it on full wet tires, because that's the only thing that they have, are either you have these full wets or you have slicks. You don't have these intermediates in the middle where there's less of a tread. So no matter what type of wet track it is, most likely you're going to run those wet tires. So that's a big thing for drivers to think about. So it is a big thing for drivers to think about. But here we're going to break down this article that was just written right afterwards. It was about an hour right after the race, or a little less time right after the qualifying to be exact. So we might be getting ahead of ourselves on that. I honestly think we are. I wanted to break down practice too. But there's no practice results up on the website yet, because I believe it still had to go through a couple of things. Barcelona round 2, yeah, it's still Barcelona. So with that being said, yeah, it's going to be difficult to find out how practice went, because I don't remember everything right off the top of my head. So we kind of have to go back and see the start of not qualifying, so we have to go down even further. So the practice, yes, that's exactly what we wanted to see. And there we go. And so the final for the practice, this was a big thing. Pulling did lead when the 000s came out, but they still counted Jamie Chadwick's practice time right at the end, just like a qualifying session. And Jamie Chadwick put in a blistering time right at the end, and she did get loose right at the edge of the racetrack, being 13 100ths ahead of Abby Pulling. So that was kind of a big difference there. And Abby Pulling did say, even after qualifying, she told the media, saying, the car handled fantastically, and we had so much confidence in going into qualifying after practice due to how well we did. And all the drivers' consensus, it seems like they've been saying, this track is built around confidence. If you don't have confidence here, even the announcers were kind of saying that. Billy Munger and Alex Checkis were saying that same exact thing, where you have to have so much confidence around this racetrack. If you don't, it's going to be slower and slower. I also meant to say, or not meant, but I also forgot to add Naomi Schiff, because she's a part of that commentary team. She said that too. It's a confidence builder. If you aren't able to do well in those first few minutes of the qualifying or of that practice, your confidence starts to get less and less, so you don't push as much throughout the period, and sure enough, you'll find yourself on the back foot heading either into the race or into that qualifying. Pulling found herself in the front foot, even though she got second, because it was just beaten out by a great lap in practice by Jamie Chadwick. Trying to see exactly what it was here as they were playing a video of it. Can't show that due to copyright, but she got first place. I take that back. It was 3-1. It was 31 100ths with a 156.696 was her best practice run. Jamie Chadwick's best practice run, and we saw those times improve after a long while. So that was a big thing to it. Abby Pulling, once again, like we said, just 31 100ths off the time. 0.031. In the practice, Kim Alainen was 2/10 back of Jamie Chadwick at the end of the practice session, and Martha Garcia coming up huge in practice with a fourth place with just 1.047 seconds back. She was the biggest gap out of all of them, even though it seemed like they were still counting lap times, and a couple of them had not finished their laps just yet. And that's something definitely to look after as we talk about qualifying. Where were these drivers at the start of practice? And of course, one thing to mention, or a couple things to note. In this free practice session, the drivers were first out before F1, before F2, before FIA F3, and then, like we said, WSERIES was here too, so they were the first ones out, and they were on a pretty damp racetrack. So again, drivers starting their practice sessions with wet tires instead of slick tires, and then moving out onto those slick tires. So they had a little bit more pace to give, especially at the end of sessions, and knowing that they would have to use this set for at least half that qualifying session in order to most likely make it for the race. You want to have grip still on your tires for the race that's 30 minutes long. It's a sprint, but we all know, even with the sprint, if you push too much on a set beforehand, you're going to struggle more than likely at the end of a race. And that's, of course, what we're trying to build up to in this episode, is build up to what's our prediction, what do we expect to happen. These are all the questions that I expect to answer. There's more questions, of course, right now. It's what do we expect to happen, and what what's my prediction heading forward. Of course, if you're in the chat and are enjoying this content and want to chime in and know anything about this, give your takes on what you saw today, feel free. This is why we are live. But moving on. We talk about Alice Powell dropped down to about 5th place at that practice session. 1.165 was how far back she was from Jamie Chadwick after that lap. Jessica Hawkins, her teammate, Alice Powell's teammate, was 1.239 seconds back. So figuring out what this actually, 165, yeah, 1.239 seconds back of Jamie Chadwick. These are all the times that are back from that. Sarah Moore and Abby Eaton, 7th and 8th place, 1.403 back and 1.552 out. So 1.5 seconds out was Abby Eaton. That was in 8th position. A driver that time and time again, this season especially, we'll talk about it. The commentators will talk about it. The analysts will talk about it. Eaton struggled. And of course, if you followed this series, you'll know why last year. And if you don't know why, I'm about to explain it. So last year, Circuit of the Americas, the FIA decided to be a little not the best. And what I mean by that is they were afraid that drivers were going to abuse track limits so much in turn 1 they put a sausage curb, a bollard there. And that was such a sucky thing, a terrible thing. Because nobody was running wide, first off. The only time that they would run wide is because they were forced to run wide. They were forced off the racetrack and would lose time. Nobody in Circuit of the Americas history, unless you're a cup car, and even then I don't believe that they were gaining time then, would gain time. Running wide on turn 1. It's tough to do. So either way, besides that, so Abby Eaton just in that weekend alone had a difficult time controlling the car. She spun out in turn 1 a couple of times. And that was a lot of drivers, if not all the drivers besides Sabre Cook's first time there driving. I think Isla Agron had been there before, but it doesn't matter. They found struggle at this racetrack, and sure enough, on the Sunday, on the second races of both the support series, you had 2 severe injuries. I have a great picture of one of them. One of the F4 drivers runs wide on the sausage curb, or where the sausage curb was. Maybe that was a Saturday. Hits it. Breaks his back. Sure enough, Abby Eaton does the same thing that same day. Runs wide. And both have talked about it. Instantly could feel it. Instantly the pain rose. Instantly something was majorly wrong with their body, and sure enough, broken back. So, go to remove that. The FIA removed that, really. But yeah, the damage had already been done. So, why am I saying this? Well, because Abby Eaton's coming back from an injury and probably not, that's definitely in the back of your mind. You try to erase something. I can't speak for a driver, but I can speak just off of pure, I guess, sim knowledge in a way. You keep making a mistake there, you do that, you just wrecked a car in like practice or something like that, you're going to take it a little bit easier in that way. Or you do it in a race before, you're going to take it easier. Point is, you're going to try not to make that happen again for a lot of racetracks. So, yeah, it's definitely in the back of her mind, potentially, but she's trying to do better. Look at these practice times, these qualifying times. She finds herself in 8th place, and we move on. Marta Garcia. Just take that back. Sorry. Nerea Marti. she actually didn't have a time, you know, from where she was, but 9th in that practice session. 10th was Beitske-Visser. 11th was Belen Garcia. Beitske-Visser was the last one, +1, just at least in that second back, almost 2 seconds back, but still in that range. And then Belen Garcia was the first one 2 seconds back, 2.183 to be exact. Fabian Volvin, 12th at that time, 2.487 seconds off. And Chloe Chambers, 13th with 2.490 seconds back, the American. Babakova was +2.622 seconds back in 14th. De Hughes was 4.030 seconds back. And Juju Noda, 4.819 seconds back in 16th. And Bruno Tomaselli, 17th with 4.883 seconds back. And Bianca Bustamante rounds out the field with being 5.287 seconds back. So a lot to digest from all of this, like we said, from just that one practice session. The practice session was pretty interesting with, you know, Jamie Chadwick just at the last second being able to find that rhythm, find that fastest lap, still with a bit of a wet track. But these drivers and teams knew, all right, we have to adjust for the next session. What's our setup going to be like? So I've learned something kind of new with this. They're able to adjust their cars heading into practice, which was a big thing. So what is up, Harm? Hopefully you tuned in at the right time. Thank you for showing up, man. Always great to have you in chat. Hopefully your day went well. I know you're in the European side, so it's probably a little late for you, but thanks for taking some time, saying hi, and being here. Always great, man. In chat. So yeah, moving on, it was just these drivers now and teams knew that, what are we going to do? We have to adjust our cars for a more sunnier track, a drier track, and all of that, with also contemplating it's going to rain. It's going to rain the next day, and most likely we're going to get hit with it because their race starts around 1 or so p.m. So it's great. Yeah, I can't wait for both, man. It's going to be so much fun. Harm. F1, of course, real quick. Yeah, F1's on. Well, qualifying's tomorrow as well as the race on Sunday, and well, look at this. Mercedes looks pretty fast, but we're covering WSERIES for now. But yeah, this weekend's gonna be special for racing in general. This weekend's just going to be very, very special. You know, we're still talking about practice here for the WSERIES. But yeah, for a couple of things, would we see shakeups heading into qualifying? Would we see those shakeups, or would we just head out to it being normal, regular? Well, it was a little bit of a shakeup, but not as much as we expected. Now again, drivers, as we got into qualifying, we're struggling for track limits. That's something definitely to look for the rest of the weekend in any series this weekend for it, but in the WSERIES especially, drivers abusing cops, abusing that corner on the racetrack, and we're getting We're getting paid for it. It was very, very difficult for a lot of drivers to stay on course for a bit as they'd get their lap times deleted. We saw that with a lot of other drivers. So we'll get into that now. We'll break down this never mind about that. But yeah, we'll break down this latest news from them and what they had to say, what all the drivers had to say after qualifying before we break down where everybody was situated. Because I believe that this will tell us where everybody was situated. No. Why would I do that? I have the where everybody was situated, where everybody's going to grid up for tomorrow's race right here. Kind of get ahead of myself and think, oh, this is what we need to do next. But in reality, this is exactly. So for qualifying, this is how everything ended up. Jamie Chadwick does it with a 156.758. So just a little bit slower actually than her practice time. So we look back at what her practice time was, and her practice time was a 156.696, like we talked about. That was just a 696 there. So she finds herself being a little bit slower in qualifying. It's a little loud, so I'm going to turn the music down just a little bit. There we go. That's much, much better. Then Emma Kimmelainen actually 2/10 off in second, and Abby pulling 3/10 off. And she was one of the drivers that discussed it and talked about track limits being very difficult for her, but she was able to be a little bit more confident after a while. But that setup that they tried to adjust right before practice ended, they were hoping that it was going to be better on the newer tire than the older tire. It still seemed like it worked out in the end, but she knew that she had more to give than third position. But being on that second row, she's got an opportunity to be able to pass Emma Kimmelainen off the start, or even Jamie Chadwick into turn one. And who knows, cops, will we see something like we did last year in F1, or will we not see something, or will we see something like we did in Miami? Because that was a very, very difficult race for everybody, and Emma Kimmelainen outbreaking herself when she took the lead. It's going to be very interesting to see how close everybody's going to get. Pulling in third place, Visser fourth with just 6/10 out. Yeah, pulling was half a second out, but again, these times are not far away. Jamie makes one mistake again, and it's different. She just got pole too. Jamie Chadwick got pole with less than a minute to go in qualifying again. She left it to the end, and she talked about, yeah, it was a little scary for a second there, but we were able to get it done. Powell fifth with 0.657. Fabian Volvin 0.683 in sixth place off of Jamie Chadwick's time. Martha Garcia, 0.857 off of Jamie Chadwick's time. Abby Eaton being able to stay in eighth place, 0.861 off of Jamie Chadwick's time, and Sarah Moore, her teammate, 0.861 seconds off the time. It's going to be very difficult for drivers fifth and below for them to be able to get up there and have an opportunity not only at the podium, but a chance to fight for the race win. There might be a couple of safety cars. Again, it's most likely going to be a wet race. I cannot stress that enough. That 81% chance of rain means there's going to be more rainfall than the day before that had a 14% chance of rain where it did rain. Martha Garcia. Let's see here. Yeah. Sarah. Jessica Hawkins, 0.914 seconds off of Jamie Chadwick's time found herself in 10th place. So in that top 10, just in the last point spot possible, Belen Garcia plus 1.3 seconds. So the first person a second off of the leader time. And Babakova, 12th place, 1.152 seconds off of the time. So just a lot to digest for sure. Just a lot to digest in that whole time. Maria Marti, 1.380 seconds off of the leader time. Chloe Chambers, 14th, 1.414 seconds off the leader's time. And again, this is, I think, for the drivers that have not been here before. We talked about it in the first episode. Will history repeat itself, and will experience pay more than being able to just get in the car and drive flawlessly and be able to race well because of the sim? And that proved it. That proved it right here. The top 10 to the top 18. The drivers that are down. Belen Garcia, okay, it's her second time here. Second time ever here. But the drivers up before have had more experience at this racetrack, have had more experience as well in race cars, is what it seems like. So it's a little bit more of the seniority, in a sense, that has played the big part in it. With Chambers, Bruno Tomaselli was 15th, 1.570 out of the lead. Juju Noda, the youngest driver on the grid, 16th place, 2.822 seconds off the lead time. Bianca Bustamante, 3.884 seconds off the leader's time. Just, we talked about it. She was in, what was it, 18th before? Oh, she moves up to 17th. And then DeHughes, 18th, 4.968 seconds off pace from the leader, Jamie Chadwick, in qualifying. That's how they wrapped up qualifying. That's where everybody will be starting. So it's going to be interesting. Biggest movers really being around Powell, kind of. Maybe Fulvend. But that's going to be very, very difficult. We'll see what everybody has to say here from the interview coming up. Or not the interview, but what the story has said. Jamie Chadwick completes pole position hat trick. Again, this is by the W Series media relations team. They don't say who exactly wrote this story, but most likely media relations team. So, reigning double champion Jamie Chadwick continued her perfect start to the 2022 W Series season by taking pole position for her home race at Silverstone. The Brit, who has claimed victory in all three races so far this year and will attempt to win a sixth consecutive W Series race at Silverstone on Saturday in support of the Formula One race weekend. We're not going to give the sponsor more press, more advertising here. I think they get enough, to be fair. But either way, secured her third straight pole position and 10th overall with a lap of 156.758. So again, we talked about it. It's a little behind with the lap time. That was good enough to beat Mäkinen by 0.2 of a second, and Abby Pulling, who is second in the championship standings, 37 points behind Jamie, was a further 0.3 back in third place. Bikes Confessor will line up alongside Abby on the second row, and Alice Powell, the winner of last year's W Series race at Silverstone, starts from 5th on the grid. Teammates Fabian Volvend and Marta Garcia were 6th and 7th quickest, respectively. Abby Eaton, Sarah Moore, and Jessica Hawkins were the other drivers to get within a second of Jamie's benchmark, and ensured that all 6 British drivers qualified inside the top 10 for their home Grand Prix race, just inside the top 10. You know, Jessica Hawkins had that chance of not, but was able to successfully do it, and in my opinion at least. It was a cagey start to the 30-minute qualifying session as the drivers got to grips with a dry track surface which had been damp and green when they took to it for the first time for practice on Friday morning. That meant several drivers had lap times deleted in the opening 10 minutes, by the end of which Jamie led the way from teammates Teresa Babakova and Emma. What I read there is a little wrong. If you're going to use the last name for drivers after you've already said their first name, normally you put their last name and not put their first name. Just in journalism, I believe that's the rule. Could be wrong. The entire field pitted for fresh tires to set up a frantic second half of the session, during which many of the leading challengers had lap times deleted for exceeding track limits as they pushed hard with 10 minutes remaining. Abby went second fastest despite being hampered in the final sector before Jessica beat Jamie's time by 5/1000ths of a second. Jamie regained the top spot on her next flying lap, but her improved benchmark was beaten by 2/100ths of a second by Emma, who extended her advantage by a further 5/100ths with 5 minutes to go. As the clock ticked below 2 minutes, Jamie went quickest again by 2/10ths, and that proved good enough to take pole position as her closest challengers failed to improve on their final runs. It completed a perfect Friday for Jamie, who also led the way in the morning's free practice session by a time of 1 minute 56.696 with 13 seconds left on the clock. That saw her edge out Abby pulling by 3/100ths of a second, and Alice was a further 10th adrift in third. Okay, so they are doing it pretty interesting. They use their first names instead of just the last name, which is pretty interesting. And then when they first say a name, they go like Nerea Marti received a 2-place grid penalty for Saturday's race after driving through a red light at the pit lane exit at the end of practice. How do you make that mistake? Oh, all your hard work in the practice that you did wiped away because you have to start near the back of the field. 5-place grid penalty, probably. Yeah, very, very exciting.
Mama said you're meant to burn as bright as a star among the midnight.
So very interesting at the end of practice then, and at the end of that. You know, there's something that you miss on a broadcast if you cut off a little too soon. And of course, I know, understandably, that's why they did that, but you're missing out on little things like that. Jamie Chadwick said, so this is what, this is what I heard from Twitter. If you follow them on Twitter, if you follow them on any social media, they normally post the clips of the top 3 afterwards. But Jamie Chadwick, I kind of had to pull that lap out from somewhere. It's a confidence circuit. And I was always just a little bit under. Emma Kimelina put in a good lap, and I really had to lay it on the line. After I did that, I found a bit of confidence in the car, and it felt better. I'm happy with that lap and how I have a bit more confidence going into tomorrow's race. I know I've got a strong group of girls behind me, so I will see what I can do. You can have a proper race here, and I think it might be wet. What will be will be. But I'm just happy. That's a little weird of a way that they said that there, or what Jamie said. What will be will be. Yeah, you can have a proper race here, and I think it might be wet. Yep. Okay, so confidence. Just happy I got a bit of confidence in that session, and I can get my head down tomorrow. That was a tough quote. That was a little bit of a tough quote, for sure. It was a tough session, as it was. This is what Emma Kimelina had to say. It was a tough session, as it was different from practice in the morning. The wind was strong and changed the driving a lot. 13-mile-per-hour wind was supposed to be the height. A strong end challenged the driving a lot. I couldn't do the things I did in the practice session because of the wind, but I did the most I could also. Also, the grip level had changed, so there was a lot more grip out there. We didn't change the car from practice, so the balance changed quite a lot too. We have thinking to do about the setup of the car tomorrow's race, as the track will evolve again if it's going to be dry, but I'm happy to be on the front row, as you can do what you like from there. And so we'll break down Emma Kimelinen's quote real quick here, because there's a lot to take from this. The quote really from Emma Kimelinen there, the final kind of couple of sentences that she said: we have thinking to do about the setup of the car for tomorrow's race, as the track will evolve again if it's going to be dry. That's a big if, because now we're even closer to the race. So now I'll go back to this. Silverstone weather. So what? It's around Northamptonshire. This is what I wanted to see for tomorrow. 78% humidity. Got as low as 49 degrees right now, but 78% humidity. The sunrise would be at 4:48 a.m. So it's crazy how early the sun comes up there. Winds will only be around west to southwest at 9, or wind southwest at 9 miles per hour. That was tonight. My bad. 86% humidity. So no, that's actually the daytime. That's what I wanted to know. 78% humidity, yeah. 82% chance. So it went up 1%. That's what I was trying to say. So the rain goes up 1%. 64 degrees Fahrenheit. Actually, southwest at 10 to 20 miles per hour. That's according to the Weather Channel. So there's just a lot to kind of break down from that. It doesn't tell you when the rain's most likely going to get there or anything like that. But it's such a key point to tomorrow. It's such a key thing to look at. What do you do? What do you decide to do with your car? It's going to make these drivers think a lot. Because this is I believe, that's about all that they could do. They could do maybe one more tweak at the start right before the race. I'm not sure. Because at this point, which I love this saying, do you throw the kitchen sink at it? And I know that they can only do so much to the car, like air pressure and maybe the change of like the front wing level. That's just about it. There's really not much else. Maybe tighten the spring a little bit. I don't know if they could go that in depth with it, and it's not, that crazy difficult of a car to set up too. It's not like a Formula One car where you got billions of things that you could do, including the upgrades mean so much. She's happy to be on the front row, and yeah. But that's a big statement from Emma Kimmelinen, especially saying if it stays the same, we should be fine. And then Abby Pulling, this is crazy. This is how passionate she is, and this is how passionate these drivers are about this series. Saying this, I'm really frustrated as I didn't quite have the confidence on the older tires. And there was a lot of oversteer on those which I struggled with. But I made a setup change and expected it to be resolved when I went to the new tires, which it was. I just struggled in Sector 1 and we were so quick in all the other sectors. Sector 1 was my downfall today, which is quite annoying, but you can race from third on the grid and it's not the end of the world. I'm around Jamie Chadwick, Emma Kimmelinen, and Alice Powell, who are all three oldest and most experienced drivers here. So there are positives to take, as I've done a lot fewer races than them in these cars. So it's great. Well, actually, she doesn't. Oh, for full W Series results and session timing from the fourth race, you can click here. I don't know about that because I've tried. But breaking down, what she said, it's so great that she's also able to take the positives that she's learned and say, yeah, it's not the end of the world. It's not like we're 14th on the grid. It's not like we're not that far back. It's not like she's. I'm saying that as if I was her. She's being able to take that positive and still saying, all right, we can work with this because I can still gain some time. I've beaten this person before. Back at Barcelona. I know how to get around this one. I know how to defend from fourth place. And for Emma Kimmelinen, we go back to now she's put herself in qualifying with the best chance possible to be able to get a victory. Because second place on the grid, that's big. How can she take advantage of that? She's put herself on the pole before. But how can she take advantage of that and be as consistent as possible? Force Jamie to make the mistake. And if Jamie makes a mistake, she can take advantage of it and be gifted a win this time. How can she be the one to do it? That's such a big question to really take into consideration. Emma Kimmerlein found herself at Miami in such a phenomenal spot, but just struggled to be consistent. Just struggled to be able to finish. I can give you a great soccer example, a great football example. You know, you can defend, you can hold your team, hold your opponents, to 0 points, to 0 goals. But if your team has the best opportunities in at goal, you can't put it away. Yeah, sure, you might get 1 point. The biggest thing was you could have gotten 3. You should have gotten 3. But you just could not put it away. You just could not close the deal. And that's the thing that I'm trying to say. Can she close the deal this time? She's in second. But if she's able to overtake Jamie with so much time to go, and if there was a safety car and they would go back racing with about a minute to go or 1 more lap to go, what's going to happen? Such a key question that I think is so important to ask. That's something that's definitely going to be on Emma Kimmerleinen's mind. Of course, she's got to take it lap by lap, but if she's right there and if she's able to pounce, strike, and get that pass off, can she hold off Jamie Chadwick for the rest of that race and go to victory and be the first one to not only knock off Jamie Chadwick, but yeah, to be a first different race winner. And right there, she'd be in second, depending on where Abby Pulling finished. Even if Abby were to finish third, or if Abby were to get second, then that would actually be a different scenario there, because now it is a 37-point cushion for Jamie Chadwick. I forgot what the other 2 drivers, which are them, have. So it's a 38-point gap. My bad on that. Alice Powell is the one who has 33 points. Sorry. That's what I was reading. How many points do all 3 of them have? But that was important to note, because where is Emma Kimmerleinen in all of this? And Emma Kimmerleinen finds herself in 7th. So again, she gets first for this race. You add 25 points to 22. Don't want to do math right now, so I'm just going to pull out a calculator. I know it's very, 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 very simple, but screw that. Gives her 47 points. Would net her into second. That's, of course, depending on where do the rest of these drivers finish. Does Jamie finish third? I mean, Jamie's still going to hold this lead no matter what after this race. But where does Abby Pulling finish? Where does Alice Powell finish? Do they keep their second and third place? Or does she move up all the way? Where does Visser, everybody ahead of her, where do they finish? Where will they finish? Do they finish outside the top 5, or do they finish inside the top 5? Because inside the top 5 is more than 10 points, or 10 points exactly if you finish in 5th. So that's a whole other thing to think about too. Really, just getting all of it sorted in a sense, and it's very, very good for sure. So we'll see what happens with this race tomorrow. I'm looking forward to it, man. Couldn't be any more thrilled. Yeah. Just a lot, really. Not a lot left to break down from here. It's, oh yeah, that's right. Now, given my predictions. Well, it's a very, very difficult thing to just give your predictions now. I mean, my updated predictions from qualifying, because this means a lot more than it does. I think Bustamante, we'll just start off with this. We'll go 18th on up. I think it will be Bustamante 18th. I wanted to see if we could actually get all of where everybody finished, or all of where everybody qualified here. And they can. Big, I think it was just those liars, they haven't put it up. I'm sorry. But it's true, they haven't put up. You click on the link, it goes straight to the 2021 standings. So back to pulling out my phone, I guess, because I have it here. I took a picture of it right before so that I knew where everybody went off, and so that I could, or qualified, so I could tell you where, you know, where they all did and how far back they were. I think it's going to be Bustamante 18th, De Hughes 17th. I think Juju Noda is going to be able to be 15th. Bruno Tomaselli 16th. Chloe Chambers, I think, is going to make a surprise effort and be able to get up to 10th. But that's kind of jumping around, so. All right, we'll just go down the order, actually. Forget what I said. We'll go down the order. I think Chadwick will be upset and knocked off the top step of the podium. I think Kimalainen this time will really get it done. I think pulling knocks off Jamie Chadwick as well, so Jamie Chadwick would fall to third. Why I say this is because I think the way that it's going to happen is a move where Jamie Chadwick will make a mistake, will run a bit wide, and that will give not only Kimalainen a chance, because pulling will be right there with her. They'll both be able to blow by in that train, in that, you know, that slipstream kind of pass. And that will net pulling to second, Kimalainen to first. But Jamie will be able to squeeze back in, and that's where she'll stand. Will be third. I think Powell fourth, Visser fifth. Volvind, I think. No, I'm going to say Marta Garcia over Volvind. Teammates are going to stay 6th and 7th, but it's just going to be reversed from where it was in practice, or in qualifying. Marta Garcia. Yeah, I talked about that. Okay, so Eaton. I think Sarah Moore takes over 8th and Eaton finishes 9th. Like I said, Chloe Chambers will be the biggest mover of the race and finish the last spot in points, 10th place. Hawkins 11th, Bell and Garcia will get 12th. Nerea Marti 13th over Babakova 14th. That is a Babakova will get 14th. Tomaselli, I think, will stay in 15th. Noda 16th. Bustamante I take that back. De Hughes will get 17th and Bustamante 18th, and that's how everything will go. And I think we will have 2 DNFs from the back of the field, and that would be Bustamante and De Hughes getting together, getting tangled up. But I think that's how it's kind of going to go. And, that's my prediction of who will be the wreck. But I still, no matter who it is, I still expect 2 incidences where potentially we'll bring out 2 safety cars, making this race shorter and crazier than you'll see. Because we still have to factor in there's going to be rain. It's going to be a wet racetrack. This is going to go back to a green racetrack. Yes, you can drive on the wet, but in the end, when it rains so much on a racetrack and there's already been rubber, that rubber just, it washes off the track, and all of a sudden, for Sunday for an F1 race, their track is going to be green. But, yeah, if it stops before practice, or if it stops before qualifying for F1, that's going to be crazy. But I think it is going to rain for the race. I mean, 7:20 a.m. in the United States is when that race starts up. So you have to think that it's going to be a factor. Yeah. That's my prediction. That's how I think it's going to play out tomorrow. Again, if you're not followed on Twitter, !Twitter, and why I say that is because would you want me to do a live reaction to this race? We will be back, and there's a chance that we will be back Saturday. Tomorrow, after the race is all said and done with, we do one more podcast to break down everything, and then I can get it out and premiere it on Monday for everybody on the YouTube channel, just to see. But if you all want me to wake up super early and watch the race live with you all, let me know. Let me know down in the comments. Let me know down in the chat right now. Let me know on Twitter as well. Follow me on JacobYoung456 on Twitter. Theoverreactedgamer on YouTube. Subscribe if you're new. And if you enjoy this type of content, because this isn't only the stuff that I do. Yes, talking about the W Series, one of my favorite things. But also talking about the Truck Series, my second favorite thing. And talking about just lower tier racing is just something so special, because they deserve all the love. They deserve more coverage than sometimes the top does. And why do I say that? Well, because this is the future. This is the future of this sport. If you enjoy F1, you better pay attention to the lower series, because what's going to happen when your driver retires? What's going to happen when Lewis retires? What's going to happen when George retires? What's going to happen when Alex Albon hangs up the steering wheel for the final time? Just all these things. What's going to happen when that happens? What's the next driver move? Who's going to come in to the sport and take over the seat of Porsche when they are accepted or whatever? You know what I'm saying? W Series and FIA F3, FIA F2, these lower series, that is the glue that actually holds F1 together. The lower tier series are the glue that holds the top series of every motorsport together, because that's a driver pull right there. That's all I gotta say here. Thank you all so very much for watching once again. This has been the W Series Breakdown presents Countdown to Lights Out. And when I return, lights will have gone out and the race will have been over. We'll break it all down for you all. We'll come back to where everybody qualified and we'll talk about how exciting the race was. Thank you all so very much for watching. See you all next time. Adios.